It's time for Southern Fried Baseball, presented by College Baseball Central. Hosted by Jake McKeever as he talks everything SEC baseball and more.
Welcome in, College Baseball Central fans. If you are curious, yes, I am wearing the same outfit as the Texas Deep Dive, as I'll be filming these back-to-back. This is going to be the 16th and final iteration of our Deep Dive series, as my hair kind of gets a little bit crazy. And it's one that I'm probably the most accustomed with, the Texas A&M Aggies. I'm not really going to touch on everything that we've known from the last time that we saw these Aggies, but Jim Schlossnagle is out as he has gone to Texas. Michael Early, one of his assistants, is coming in. Early is a guy that had a ton of experience when he was at Arizona State. He was a tremendous hitting coach, having some of their guys drafted. Then with Texas A&M, he was kind of the architect of that great system. He's done a tremendous job building a staff that is his. It's a job that he wants. There were a ton of guys that interviewed for Texas A&M, or that Texas A&M interviewed. Ultimately, they went with a player's choice, Michael Early. And I think that the thing around this team is just going to be how much that they bring back. They bring back a ton of talent. They have a ton of expectations, or as they are the unanimous preseason number one across every single publication. I think I've only been able to find 3 individual people who have them lower, obviously due to A&M having instincts outside of their control or other teams being better. They are pretty much unanimous in the College Baseball Central poll. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's start with this lineup. Out is Ali Camarillo, drafted. Jackson Appel, drafted. Ted Burton used up all his eligibility, didn't have a JUCO year because he came over from Michigan. And then Braden Montgomery, who was drafted. He was injured late, so he wasn't actually on that Omaha roster. But there's 4 guys out. They bring in a few really elite transfers. They get a few guys back. Let's go ahead and start with kind of some of the obvious ones here. They bring back Gavin Grahovic at third base, Chase Lavalette in center, Caden Sorrell in right field, Caden Kent, who played a ton down the stretch for them at short. The old man, Hayden Schott, is going to be the DH. I actually found out that he's actually not the oldest player in college baseball, as Texas has a pitcher that is, I think, 3 months older than Hayden Schott, so the second oldest player in college baseball. Then from there, they brought in some elite transfers in Wyatt Hensler and Gavin Cash. And then they've had a few transfers that have really kind of played up, as Bear Harrison and Mike Bergevin coming over from Fairfield are 2 guys that are expected to start. Let's go ahead and start behind the plate, because I think that really is kind of the only competition. It's between St. Mary's transfer Bear Harrison, who hit .322 for St. Mary's last year as a true freshman, 8 home runs, 35 RBIs. Did strike out a little bit at 32 Ks. He can kind of cut down on that. I think he'll turn into an elite star, as he did kind of flex some of that power. Jacob Galloway, coming over from the University of Southern California. He is a guy that I think will be in the mix in kind of a platoon role, as him and Bear Harrison swing from different sides of the plate. I think it's going to be one of those 2. And then in a third role, Jamal George, if that's a place for him to get on the field, as a really freak athlete. He really impressed me when I got to watch him in the fall. He catches a little bit. He played second a little bit for them too as well. If they can get his bat into the lineup, I think it'll really go a long way. And that is pretty much it for competitions, I think. Obviously, there's a few other ones like Hayden Schott, Mike Bergevin, and Blake Binderup between that first base DH. Obviously, Schott doesn't play first base. But I think Bergevin's kind of done a really good job solidifying himself, as he's just an absolute freak. Then from there, they kind of get to play the where will people play game. I think it kind of starts with Gavin Cash moving out to left field. That's where he played entirely in the fall. He was a first baseman by trade at Texas Tech, had a tremendous year as a sophomore, tremendous year as a junior, was at Texas his freshman year too as well. So he's completed kind of all of the infinity stars of really great Texas baseball schools. Unfortunately, TCU, he is out of eligibility, so he can't go to the 4th kind of SEC baseball school. For as disappointing as a season by his standards, he still hit 300 with 15 home runs, did strike out a little bit at 63 Ks, but he was, I think, one of the few bats in a Texas Tech lineup TJ Pompey and Dominic Bravo didn't really do a good job protecting Gavin Cash. He hits the portal, immediately finds a home in Texas A&M. He's done a tremendous job meshing. It seems like him and Hayden Schott are just two peas in a pod. He can play first. I think that they're going to have him in left. If he ends up playing first, you could see somebody like Gavin Grahovic, who I think is almost a lock to play third. He did play left a little bit during Omaha when they kind of had that weird injury-riddled lineup when they brought in Jack Bell to play second, Kent to third. I think he's going to be a lock at third base. He finished just a hair under 300 as he did kind of get cold there during the Omaha run, but there was a time where he was hitting over 330 in SEC play. He was the SEC Player of the Year as a true freshman, 23 home runs, which did break Jace Levelette's freshman record. Did strike out 95 times, so we'll need to cut down on the swing and miss stuff. He went and played for Team USA, got some really good rest, looked really good in the fall. Actually, when I saw him, he was actually injured in the fall, but he's had a really good fall. I expect him to kind of build on the sophomore year that he's had. He gets another year with Michael Early, one of the best hitting coaches. Also works out with Brandon Barnes, who's a hitting coach that I have a ton of respect for, has a really great approach at the plate. So I'm really kind of excited to see kind of how Gavin Grahovic goes, because I think in the 2026 class, he's projected to go top 5. Obviously, not a ton of people play as a freshman. There are guys that take huge jumps after that freshman year. But as it sits right now, Gavin Grahovic is in the top 5 of that class. Moving on to somebody who's playing just to the left of him, Caden Kent is moving over from second base post-Braden Montgomery injury to be the shortstop. He looked really good in the fall at short. I'm going to be honest with you. He had really great feet. He has a strong arm. I know that's always the worry when you go from second base to short is that you don't have the arm strength. That doesn't appear to be the case with Caden Kent. Caden Kent and Jim Schlossnagle, for whatever reason, never really saw eye to eye. Caden Kent grinded through it when he got that shot down there at the end when Schloss kind of trusted him to go in when Braden Montgomery went down, really kind of shined. Michael Early says that he has the utmost trust in Caden Kent going forward. So I'm really excited to see what Caden Kent does as he gets a full year under his belt. Again, he hit 327 in very limited action. If you remember back his freshman year, he played a little bit, kind of had a little stuff not go his way, maybe some bad luck, really worked his ass off, and I think that he has every right to be in that shortstop role. Second base is Wyatt Hensler. He's a guy that, as I talked about, if Grahovic ends up playing left for some whatever reason, he can play third. He played third when he was at Penn, and he comes over as the most decorated player in Ivy League history. I was reading an article about it, that it was the end of an era because he was such a big recruit as a Pennsylvania prep, then immediately goes to Penn, immediately breaks all the records there. He hit 360 for them last year, 22 home runs in a very pitcher-friendly ballpark, 56 RBIs from a Penn team that has been to the postseason the past few years, that has had a ton of Power 5 talent, so he knows what it takes, I think, to go in and succeed there at second base. I expect him to not miss a beat. I expect him to kind of be in that SEC Newcomer of the Year talk. I know that Gavin Cash is probably one of my favorite players in college baseball history, even going back to his Texas Tech days. But Wyatt Hensler, I think, is the real deal. He hit an absolute gargantuan moonshot when I got to watch him in the fall. Obviously, the pitching from SEC to Ivy is going to be a major step up. But I think being a senior, guy that turned down the MLB draft, I think he knows exactly where he sits, and he's super excited to be in College Station. Then from there, first base is between Mike Bergervin coming over from Fairfield. He had 18 home runs for Fairfield last year. Fairfield was kind of a fringe tournament team. He was a big reason because of that, hit 287 for him. And then Blake Binderup, who at times his freshman year just displayed gargantuan power. I know in the fall he hit one probably 400 or 500 feet. He had that backside bomb against LSU, was really doing a good job kind of staying on it. His thing has always been strikeouts. His thing has always been hitting elite pitching. If you can kind of get that figured out in his redshirt sophomore year and kind of take over a DH role, I think that's where I kind of see him, just with Bergervin being such a good first baseman. That's kind of the role from there. And then as we move into the outfield, I already touched on Gavin Cash. Center field, Jace Lavallette's moving from right field over to center field again. He played center field at times last year when Braden got Montgomery in right. Then when Travis Chestnut moved into center field, Jace moved into right. Jace is a ridiculous athlete. I think he's the number one college bat in the 2025 MLB draft. I know there's a Holiday kid and a Wiltz kid that are ranked really, really high. Some people have Jamie Arnold as the first pitcher being taken at 1-1, but Jace Lavalette is the best returning college bat, and he's going to go incredibly, incredibly high. For a guy that's as big and as strong and as powerful as he is, he moves really great. He steals bases. He has a really tremendous feel for the game, has a stronger arm and a quicker arm than you would think. He did a ton of work from his freshman year to his sophomore year, shortening his swing, improving his approach, and it really came to fruition as he took over college baseball. 305 for him last year, 29 home runs. Sits a few home runs. I believe it's less than 5 home runs away from the Texas A&M school record. But the thing that I should caution him about that is Gavin Grahovic did break his freshman year record. We saw Jack Caglione break Wyatt Langford's freshman home run record and then break the team home run record at Florida. And I kind of think that that's what's going to happen. So if Jace wants to keep that home run record past Gavin Grahovic, because I know him and Jace have a really good rivalry going, he's going to have to, I think, hit the cover off of the ball, hit those 30 home runs again, just to get ahead of Grahovic. And again, he's a really athletic center fielder. He's a natural center fielder. He's a guy that entered the portal during the early situation, had a ton of Power 5 suitors, turned them all down. So really excited to kind of see what Jace Lavalette does in centers. He's one of the best personalities in college baseball when he gets out of his shell. With Hayden Schott getting him out of his shell last year, I'm really excited to kind of see how Jace grows as a baseball player and, more importantly, kind of just as an athlete itself. Moving over into right field, making the shift from left field to right field, is sophomore Caden Sorrell. He hit 275 as a freshman with 11 home runs. I'm going to be honest, when I saw him in the fall, he looked like a completely different player. He transformed his body. He has a ton of pop, as he did hit a home run when I saw him in that game. Added pop late with Texas A&M. Didn't play anywhere in the summer, so I can't really talk about his Cape stuff, but really kind of honed his craft, got better, worked with Coach Michael early, and the results are really going to come in early. He's somebody that I expect to kind of break out, and I know that he had a really good freshman year, but I expect him to kind of be in that all-SEC conversation as an outfielder. I expect him to kind of get that 20 home run range. So if you're doing the math, that's Jace, who's going to hit 20, Gavin, who's going to hit 20, Wyatt Hinsler, who hit 20 last year, Mike Bergevin, who finished too short, is another guy that you could kind of see as hitting 20 home runs. Gavin Cash hit 20 2 years ago for 2 years in a row at Texas Tech, and then Caden Sorrell. So that's 6 of their 9 bats hitting over 20 home runs. That really was the formula for everybody to get to Omaha last year's. Hit a ton of home runs because you only need one hit against some of these elite pitchers. We saw it in the Hagen-Smith start against Kansas State. If you can hit home runs off of people, that goes a long, long way. I'm super, super, super excited to kind of see how many home runs that they hit. And then lastly, brings us to the DH spot. I think it's going to be Hayden Schott. He hit 333 for them. Only hit 8 home runs. And I really did have to double check that because at times it felt like he displayed really, really good power that you would think he would hit double-digit home runs. I think that that's one where he could kind of unlock it. But I think he has a tremendous approach where he never tries to do too much at the plate. He's really good at finding gaps, finding holes, getting on base. Really kind of a throwback player, as he's not the fastest guy, but he's a high-contact guy. I'm really kind of excited to see Hayden Schott another year in the A&M program, in the A&M system. I'm not sure how much a 6th-year senior who took a gap year is going to improve, but I'm really excited to kind of see what he does. And then Blake Benderup, if the knee issues for Schott aren't 100%, he's a guy that you could kind of slide into the DH role. Then from there, there's a few really, really talented arms that are coming back for Texas A&M that are a little bit surprising. They did lose Chris Cortez, their back-end closer, to the MLB draft. They did use Evan Aschenbach, who's one of the best closers, I think, in college baseball history, and definitely the best in Texas A&M history. And then Shane Sadejo is going to be out the entire year, as he did have to have surgery. From what I've heard, it's not even if he's doing bad with his rehab. It's that it is a 15 to 12-month injury. So he's going to be out for the entire year. But I think to kind of lessen that load a little bit, they do get Ryan Prager, the redshirt junior, coming back for another year, as he told the Angels no, as he was drafted in the top 100. almost unheard of in college baseball. It really is crazy that somebody like him is back in college. 9-1 with a 2.95 ERA. Old school pitcher, old school SEC guy. Had 124 Ks. Really doesn't blow by you fastball wise, but does a great job kind of locating the zone. Only 20 walks in 97 innings. Just a ridiculous pace. A lot of people have him as the best pitcher returning in college baseball. A lot of people have him as best pitcher in the SEC. I'm really excited to kind of see, and if Raglan Prager can continue to grow on that, it's going to be a good year for Texas A&M, as he really was great for them. Then in the Saturday role, Justin Lampkin is coming back. At times he was the ace of the staff. He did kind of have a little bit of some up and down stuff there towards the middle of the season before coming on late. He has an ERA of 5.21. Again, 65 innings, 22 walks. I felt like a lot of those were kind of when he started slumping. Obviously, Shane Tadeo kind of picked up a little bit of that load, so it really kind of lessened it. But, A&M is going to get back their Friday and their Saturday guy from at points last season. And then from there, there's a few other guys that I really kind of expect to break out. Miles Patton coming over from Long Beach State. He's a guy that I got to watch in the fall. 66 innings for them. Really kind of pound the zone stuff as he's a low 90s guy. Had a really, really good slider that was working against Houston Christian. So I'm really excited. And if he's the Sunday guy for this Texas A&M team, I think that that's going to go a long, long way. And it speaks to how much Lampkin has grown with his stuff. Then from there, a few other names. Brad Rudis is still kind of hanging around the program. He's a guy that's really kind of accepted his role a ton. He's now a weird arm slot guy. He started at times for Texas A&M as more of a filler role, as kind of that big guy out of the bullpen. He's a guy that's really, really been around the way. Weston Moss, Shane Tadeo's old high school teammate. He's a guy that's somebody I could kind of expect to see take a very, very big step forward. He's been really effective at times when I've seen him, and has just never really been able to carve out a role. I think if given the chance, he would do tremendous, tremendous stuff. As going back to high school, he had a really, really good stuff. Another guy I kind of expect to have much better stuff is Caden Wilson. He was really, really good in Omaha, but when I saw him in back-to-back weekends in the SEC, he got shelled. In the LSU series, he got shelled in back-to-back nights where he couldn't even record it out. He has tremendous stuff. I know when I talked to Max Weiner last year, he said he has the highest ceiling of anybody on the staff, and that includes Ryan Prager. Obviously, he's going to have a new pitching coach this season. Can he kind of unlock some of the command that he had as he had 7 walks in 11 innings? Did have 15 strikeouts, but again, I think he gave up a lot of hard contact, really, really limited role. Does A&M kind of use him in a Cortez role? Because if you remember correctly, Chris Cortez was a starter at times. Do they and move him into the back end of the bullpen? That's going to be really, really interesting to kind of see as well. And then lastly, A&M gets their second closer as they lose Aschenbach in Josh Stewart. He was absolutely amazing in Omaha, coming in throwing 20. He threw 31 innings from last year, 39 Ks. Really, really good stuff. Reminds me a little bit of Roger Clemens later in his career with his motion, as he's not a blow it by you kind of guy, but he's definitely a guy that can work corners, has really, really great off speed. So I'm excited to kind of see what Josh Stewart does going forward. That's it for Texas A&M. I'm actually not going to get to see them until that first week of SEC play at the earliest, as I do get to go to some of these tournaments. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to get to see him in Houston in that tournament. I won't see him in College Station till that 4th week of the season. So it's a little bit weird kind of starting out the season being so far away from the number 1 team in the country when they are so close. My floor, if we're doing the bell curve, I know that I didn't do that for the Texas episode, is national championship. A head coach has never won the national championship. And there's going to be a lot to go along the way, as the SEC is absolutely loaded. It's a lot for a first-year coach to take in. But the talent on this team, the chip on the shoulder on this team, I think that they are one of the 6 teams that I think could win the national championship. Bell curve in the middle is Omaha. They went to Omaha 2 of the last 3 years. They feel like they're an even better, deeper team that's more focused, as they have had a ton of success going to Omaha. They know what it takes to get to Omaha, how to manage that staff. I think that that's there from there. And then far left, I think getting balanced at a regional is kind of the ceiling for this one. They have a ton of hitting. They have a ton of pitching. They have a ton of hungry guys. They have a ton of guys that have been around the way a little bit. Not really a ton of freshmen, as they just have Sawyer Farr and then Terrence Keel. But I'm really, really excited for this veteran Texas A&M team, and I really do think the sky's the limit for them. I believe that that's all we have time for as we do come up on this 20-minute mark. Thanks for tuning in for these 16 series. They're all on YouTube. If there's a team that I missed, go in and check that out. We're going to be having some great, exciting stuff in that first week of the season. So we'll see everybody then. Talk to you later.